We thought it would actually be more interesting and definitely more relevant to today's theme if we talked a little bit actually about how innovation and new mobile technologies are changing the way that market researchers are doing our work, which I guess you could describe as the business of understanding human beings. I wouldn't be a researcher, though, if I didn't give you a few charts. So just bear with me on this. Some of you might have seen this already. It's a famous Morgan Stanley prediction that essentially says that in the year 2014, approximately, the number of mobile internet users is going to exceed the number of desktop internet users. Of course, this is very much underpinned by the next 5 billion, or given the announcement of this week, it should probably be the next 6 billion. Smartphone users, the rapid growth of smartphones in the emerging countries. So very, very quickly, the mobile ecosystem and the network effect happening in the mobile environment is going to significantly outsize that of the desktop environment. And of course, all of us here as mobile professionals probably don't need telling that really the future in whether it's marketing or market research or really innovation of any kind is going to be very much mobile-centric. Scott Adams, the author of Dilbert, has quite a nice term for this. The mobile device is the exo-brain. To illustrate this is a graphic from a TNS study called Mobile Life. Basically, what this is it's a chart of the day. So on the left-hand side, it's when people wake up in the morning. On the right-hand side, it's when people go to bed at night. And on the top, we've got the UK. On the bottom, we've got China. And in essence, each of these colours just represents a different type of activity. It's a visual representation of what people are doing and the degree, the volume with which people are engaging with different types of mobile activities during the day, messaging, video, social networking, and so on. Really, the key message from this chart is simply that people are using their mobile devices ubiquitously throughout the day. There's a little bit of a dip in the UK at dinner time, less of a dip, interestingly, in China. At dinner time, it's very, very common in mainland China to actually go to dinner and to see everybody around the dinner table furiously operating their mobile devices. Still, in this country, probably a little bit of a faux pas. But what this means is essentially, for anywhere between 16 to 24 hours a day, you've got people engaging with this device that sits in their pocket anywhere from 16 to 24 hours a day. A device that carries their contacts, carries their messages. It is the primary source of their information, communication, entertainment. It is the exo-brain. It only switches off when the live brain switches off. And the implications of that are tremendous. The implications of that for the market research industry are tremendous. Of course, the rise of the smartphone is very much driving this and accelerating the opportunities and the types of innovations that are really delivering the new kinds of functionalities and utilities. So this chart from Credit Suisse shows how the increase in smart devices is very much outpacing the increase in adoption of feature phones. And particularly, again, in the emerging world, where now you can get smart devices at approximately the $70 to $80 price point, we're seeing a huge explosion, an exponential growth in the mass uptake of smart devices, and therefore the uptake of apps, the uptake of all kinds of different and new functionalities that previously feature phone users were not able to access. What does that mean? What does that mean for market researchers? Well, it means that we can actually start using the mobile device as a means to do what we do, which is to understand human beings. Now, if you think about the history of the market research industry, if you think about the way that data and consumer insight has historically been collected, it started off, I think most of us, I believe, are mature enough to remember the days of people with clipboards on the street. You might still find them actually in some parts of London. In many parts of the emerging world, face-to-face is still very much the predominant method of collecting consumer information, simply because people don't have PCs at home. So in many parts of the world, we're still knocking on the door, or we're still stopping in people on the street. But that obviously has limitations, because that's an interruption-based model. You're literally interrupting people from their day, and you're relying on people who are actually gracious enough to take the time and talk to you for 20 minutes or however long you need. So we migrated, if you will, from face-to-face to telephone. Telephone interviewing enjoyed a glorious era of about 15 years. I don't know if any of us here are old enough to remember being called, but that pretty much died actually in many parts of the developed world with the so-called do not call types of databases and the increasing resistance to being interrupted. If you're trying to enjoy your dinner, the last thing you want is a market research interviewer calling you up and asking you about your favorite washing powder. So again, it's an interruption-based model, and it's based on actually capturing people at a certain time of day who are willing to talk to you. If you look at response rates around the world, typically today, your average telephone response rate in a country like the UK is going to be less than 5%. That means that you've got to make 20 phone calls to get somebody who's willing to talk to you. Now that has a lot of implications. It's difficult, it's time-consuming, it's costly, but actually from a research perspective, it's not ideal because you're starting to get what we call a self-selected sample. So obviously the big disruptive innovation of the last 15 years in the research industry was moving much of that interviewing to online. Online, of course, in the research industry, as it is in all kinds of marketing communications, is not an interruption model, it's a permission-based model, it's an opt-in model. Today around the world, TNS do about 7 out of every 10 interviews online. So we've got consumer panels, all of which are opt-in panels around the world. Thousands upon thousands of people have opted in to work with us to do market research interviews. However, the desktop online model is still constrained. You still require people to be at their PC, to be engaged with their PC, to interrupt what they're doing. Typically, for most people, we wouldn't be doing market research interviews at work, so that's restricting us to doing the interviews at home when we have time. The difference is with the mobile platform, of course, is because it is our exobrain, we carry it with us for most of our waking lives. It opens up opportunities to actually collect information from people without these constraints. The sorts of applications that we're starting to see emerge in the space, the sort of sweet spots, if you will, for mobile data captures are advertising and communications testing. So, of course, big part of market research. We make a lot of money from testing advertising for understanding consumers' responses to marketing communications. One of the trickiest parts of doing this traditionally is to actually manage what we call the latency, to capture people, to understand when they've been exposed, and then to capture people as soon as possible after they've been exposed. With the mobile device, we have a much more sophisticated capability in terms of targeting individuals. It's possible now to actually send a survey invitation to a mobile user, an opt-in mobile user, to answer a few questions literally the moment after they've been exposed to a piece of stimulus. If you imagine if we were testing responses to a new TV campaign, it wouldn't be very difficult at all for us to actually send a survey invitation literally after the TVC has been exposed. Product and concept testing typically, again, has been done in artificial surroundings. We get people into focus group rooms. We ask them to come and sit in rooms and taste test or to try new things. Now, that's limited because it's not realistic. Typically, people don't go to market research offices to try products. They're trying products in the context of their real lives. The beauty of the mobile technology is that you can now actually test products without the need to bring people into artificial environments. You can start to test products in the context of people's real lives. Media and content. I've got a case study in a moment which exemplifies this, but again, a real sweet spot for mobile research in understanding people's responses to all kinds of media. The beauty of the mobile platform is that you can start to actually have multiple screen engagement where people can be consuming their content on one screen and then be giving their feedback on that content on their mobile screen. And then finally, political and social polling. Still very nascent. I can't say honestly that we're making a lot of money from this now. But if you think about recent developments and think about the importance of mobile technology in igniting change, in demonstrating the voices of people around the world. And you can imagine how the immediacy of the mobile platform to capture people's sentiment at a given moment in time can give rise to opportunities in this space. What this chart shows is a couple of different ways of thinking about how we could collect mobile information. So this presentation will be made available to all of you, so don't feel obliged to take copious notes, but I'll just explain it very briefly. On the x-axis left to right, we've got I guess, the more simple types of data capture via SMS. SMS surveys have been around for a very long time. They're not new. You've then got mobile internet, which is using the mobile internet infrastructure, the web-based infrastructure, to capture data. And then you've got apps. So SMS, internet, apps. On the y-axis, up and down, you've got passive data collection. A good example of passive data collection, which would be mobile internet-based, would be something that we call clickstream. So this is something that we're doing for quite a few of our clients around the world. We've got panels of consumers in a number of countries in the world who have opted in. We've got a little piece of software which is then connected real-time, 24 hours a day, via their 3G or Wi-Fi connection, which captures everything that our consumers are doing on their mobile devices. So this is typically something that we sell to clients in this space, hardware makers, operators, and so on, who want to know what are people doing on their devices, what are they downloading, what content are they viewing, what apps are they using. So that's an example of passive measurement. The user doesn't have to do anything. You've then got active measurement, where users have to do stuff. So a good example of this would be the survey. You have to take a questionnaire. You have to participate in an interview. Active measurement. And the next level, which we're starting to explore now, is social. So beyond traditional active measurement, actually the socialized nature of market research. If you think about the traditional focus group, is a good example of a type of social market research. And mobile also offers the potential to start to socialize data collection. What I'd like to do is just give you a couple of case studies, and I'll start with an R&D study that we did, which sits in what we would call the active and the app space. So earlier this year, we partnered with a company called HeyCrowd. Some of you might know this. It's actually it's one person. HeyCrowd is one person who developed a free app which you can download from the iTunes Store. It's iPhone only at the moment. Used to be called OP Smart, but rebranded in May to call HeyCrowd. And if you're interested, you can download HeyCrowd. The HeyCrowd app, it's essentially a free survey app where you can take questions and you can ask questions just for fun. But we decided to actually partner with the founder of HeyCrowd just to test a few different types of interfaces. Amanda talked a lot about user centricity, and this is absolutely critical in the markets research industry as well. User centricity is everything. Why is that? Well, it's self-evident. I think none of us here would disagree that being user-friendly is important. But for market research, to ensure that you get good quality information, you've got to have user-friendly interfaces. I don't know if any of us have taken a questionnaire recently, but the sad reality is most questionnaires are not very user-friendly. They're mind-boggling. And there's a direct correlation between how simple and how usable a data collection interface is with the depth and the clarity of the information that you get. So what we decided to do was work with HeyCrowd to try a few different ways through their app technology of designing a mobile-based research interface. And we were looking at the experience for the user, but also the experience for the researcher. So as a researcher, there's a lot of different considerations that we have to bear in mind around evaluating the usefulness of a different type of data collection platform, particularly around recruitment. Can we get the types of people that we want to interview? We wanted to understand, is this a viable platform from the perspective of actually, do we get robust information? So we decided to actually parallel run this with a desktop platform running the same questions, one on HeyCrowd and one on a desktop platform, and then look at the user experience through a feedback mechanism. So I've just very quickly shared with you each of these four areas. So this is essentially how what was then called OP Spark, the HeyCrowd application looked like. And you can see that there's different types of things that we tried. So we've got the traditional polling on the left. We've got your traditional scale, which on the iPhone screen was just simply scrolling up and down on the 1 to 10 scale. Then we had on the next to the right something which is a bit like a fruit machine. It's a rotating wheel. Okay? So in this case, it was selecting your age from a wheel that you would rotate. And on the next, we had buttons, again, touchscreen buttons, something probably which is relatively akin to what you would see in the desktop environment. And then on the right, we had a different format of buttons. So we wanted to play around with different types of user interfaces on the HeyCrowd app platform to see which ones worked best. From the recruitment perspective, really, really important. We spend a lot of time at TNS scratching our heads thinking, gosh, our brief is to find one-eyed men in South Africa who use this brand of washing powder 3 times a week, but not on a Tuesday. It's a challenge for us. The beauty of the mobile environment and the app environment is that apps are viral, and much of mobile is viral. So we decided to actually use a viral method of recruitment. And if you go to the HeyCrowd app, you can see how actually they facilitate viral recruitment. And it worked very well. You can see the different countries where we were able to recruit users to our study. This chart simply says that the findings from this particular piece of research done on HeyCrowd were almost identical to the same questions fielded on a traditional desktop questionnaire application. So the robustness was demonstrated through this. By doing a parallel run, by using HeyCrowd versus a traditional online method, we could see that actually it worked. We got the right kind of people, we got the same kinds of numbers. And when we asked our HeyCrowd respondents, how did you find this experience? Would you prefer to continue taking surveys on the iPhone versus the PC? As you can see, the majority said we would actually prefer to do it on the iPhone. So very encouraging, still early days, but very encouraging experiment, if you will, a little R&D test into seeing what possibilities could exist using app-based data collection methodologies. There are some caveats. At the moment, HeyCrowd is still iPhone-based, so the iPhone universe is not representative of the total universe. And as with any kind of app development, the need to ensure a consistent experience across different platforms is really, really important. I'm going to speed this up a little bit because I'm getting the time signal. I've got a few more slides to go through. Very quickly, I want to share with you another case study, which was a piece of work we did in Denmark, actually, for a local Denmark broadcaster, a Danish broadcaster that was broadcasting the Eurovision Song Contest, who wanted to understand viewer responses to the Eurovision Song Contest. And what we did was we set up a little app and actually recruited about 140 Danish TV viewers to watch the Eurovision Song Contest and answer a few questions as the TV program was going on. So again, some examples of the types of interface and the types of questions that we used, and a really good example of the dual screen effect. So the TV on the one hand consuming the broadcast content, and then using the mobile device to interact with both our survey questions, but very importantly with others. So here we have the socialized element of data collection, where actually we created a community of these 140 viewers who ended up actually interacting with each other. And in that interaction, there was a lot of very interesting insight to be had. So various questions that we asked about the content. We wanted to understand people's immediate top-of-mind reactions to the programming. We engaged them with little competitions on the fly. So throughout the duration of the Eurovision Song Contest show, we were constantly asking new questions and we were constantly probing them. Really, just what I wanted to share with you was that we got a tremendous amount of engagement. And engagement, as with any kind of marketing, is really the most precious commodity in market research. If you can engage your market research consumers, then that's your holy grail. We got a massive amount of engagement. Almost all of our 140 Danish consumers were constantly engaging. We had almost all of them logged in throughout the duration, and they started engaging with each other and started chatting with each other. And we found that actually the real insights were coming not just from the questions that we asked, but actually from their interactions with one another. So that was very, very quick a run through of a couple of different ways that we're looking at using mobile technology, just casting the crystal ball a little bit more into the long term. Some other stuff that we're really hoping will start to yield some opportunities for us. So our R&D lab, give you a few examples of some of the things on the horizon. So location-based targeting, geo-targeting, of course, all of us are looking at this in some dimension, I would imagine, and then wanting to understand what the opportunities are here. If you think about what I've talked about in terms of how mobile platforms can target research respondents with more immediacy, the ability to actually overlay it location-based can create a whole new level of targeting. We're actually in conversations with operators, a couple of operators in the UK and a couple of operators in the US, about leveraging their location-based information to be able to start to target consumers based on where they are. So imagine, for example, if we were doing a piece of work for, say, a coffee company. We wanted to understand the experience, how satisfying was the experience within the coffee shop. It's technically possible to actually serve a survey invitation to somebody as they leave the coffee shop, which saves us from the need to either put a physical interviewer outside that coffee shop or ask people maybe days later if they'd ever visited that branch of the coffee chain. Of course, this isn't going to be something that happens tomorrow. There's a lot of questions, a lot of issues that come with this. And the key thing I would say is that we're not going to start to randomly spam people anytime soon. We're not going to start to just broadcast survey invitations based on your location. As always, this is going to be an opt-in platform. So only people who opt in will potentially be served with geo-targeted, location-based survey invitations. Another new R&D opportunity for us is facial recognition. So using the rear-facing camera on your mobile device, we can start to look at reactions to stimuli based on, actually, this is a technology developed not by us, by a company called Affectiva. Using Affectiva technology, we can study people's faces as they may watching an ad or as they're watching a concept description, and using not what they say, but actually the reactions on their faces, start to bring in some neuroscience into understanding new concepts, into testing advertising. And then along similar lines, Affectiva also have a technology which essentially is like it's like a little plaster that you can wear. You can actually put your mobile device next to your arm or your hand and collect skin conductance data. So again, biometric information based on how people's skin reacts. You can understand people's reactions to stimuli. You can understand when people are excited. You can understand when people are bored. Neuroscience, biometrics are a new frontier for us overall in the market research industry, but the mobile platform is really accelerating the types of opportunities that we're seeing in this area. So if you overlay all of those different ideas, enhanced targeting, the exobrain, being able to target people and reach people wherever they are without having to bring them into an artificial research setting, being able to collect information not on an interruption basis but on a permission basis, in a real-time environment, using biometric information to supplement survey data. All of this really, we think, is going to drive a vision of being able to understand people better, being able to understand people continuously, and ultimately not just collecting data but collecting real consumer insights in the field, which are truly representative of of our target population. So we think really, the opportunities and the innovations are going to be the sweet spot for TNS now and in the future. Thanks.